and welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to like, follow, or subscribe to any of the videos I put out there. Just put them out there where I can. Have a jolly great time doing so. Now, I'd like to welcome you. I've decided to split this one up into two parts. It just seems easier, or they just get a bit too long. It's all the same techniques we've learned before in other videos. We're just applying them and carrying on. But I'd like to welcome you back now, because we are now coming back to working on scenery. And today's video is, well, not that interesting for some, but I think this is where the layout now starts to come together. So as you would well be aware, we have our coastal side over here, and we make our way up to Noodle Knocker Junction over here. Now, as a result, we had our beautiful radio control car club over here and the coastal scene here, and we need to bring them together where we've got our beautiful bridge and this mountain thing. We need to join this up, and that's what it's all about. Now, you'll certainly know we have this module here that goes off to the radio control car club here, and it sits right in place just here. And that's all good, and that's where we got up to. So effectively where the split is here in the cabinet work, we had started doing a bit of a swampy marsh area here. That's that sort of low-lying salt area that you'd get. And as a result, we sort of had left it exactly like that, and the tree was here next to the bridge. So in today's episode, we're going to put a little something here. And I was going to break it up into two separate videos, but we're just going to break this content into two pieces. So while I had started working on this and the bulk of the footage is here, not that there's much that needs to happen, but we need to sort of join and finish this little area up. So a few little bits and pieces we need to get stuck into today. So let's not waste any further time and get straight into it, shall we?
Now, class, let's just pay a quick bit of attention here. It's our history lesson. We've got to get started. I've always wanted to have one of these communication masts along the side. I think they're GSM type of towers, and they're located all across the world, and they're similar. There's usually a lattice mast, or sometimes something now it's just a concrete pole. Here are some picked up around South Australia on their railway lines. It's sometimes a lattice tower, and obviously a communications hut inside, harbouring some equipment and what have you. Pretty primitive. I've also just picked up a few telephone ones here and there, so you get the general vibe. But I thought something like this would look nice in that little corner there, on a little bit of a segregated bit where the earth starts to rise from the salty mangrove marsh, or something you might see in Whyalla or Port Augusta in South Australia. And it just so happens I discovered this from a tremendous place that I purchased a lot of bits and pieces from, Goodwood Scenics in the UK. They happened to have this communications mast. I said, let's have some of that. Unfortunately, it didn't quite arrive in super smooth shape. Let's check it out. Let's pick the video up from there. Well, here we are, as always, the proposed location. Let's knock up a couple of quick calculations here, and let's get stuck into it and see what's happened with that mast exactly. After several hours, we've managed to restore this mast into reasonable condition up here. So if you look quite carefully here, you can see a bit of a howdy-doody with the glue. It's not too bad, at least it's solid. And particularly on this one here, you can see where obviously the front has been scratched a little. We'll leave that for the minute. I think that we can use that as a bit of detail. And you can see there's actually an extra metal spike, where the rest of these, you can see how the glue, they sit on a little plastic mount there. And here's the one that was still 100% intact, that looks very clean and done there. On this one, you can see it didn't work out. There's glue that's gone everywhere. And basically I threaded a piece of metal through it and then glued it to what was left of the plastic mount. And it's poking a little high at the top. We may come back and trim it. And at the moment, I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. We're going to add a little bit of additional detail here, but we're going to keep it like this and not attach it to the base we're building, because that way, if I need to get it out the way, it lifts up in one piece and is less susceptible to getting damaged. Well, as you know, we've taken time building these little sectional modules to fill in the gaps, and certainly we did the same with the radio control section, and Here's a great piece of footage when we were measuring it out and working out what we could do. And of course a little linking bit here. Now the section we're going to do is just past our little bridge here at the moment. Sitting some remote controls on top, very handy. And it's where we've got the coastal scene, and we were working on this section of marshy type of low laying salt sort of thing. And the plan is, we've got this little nugget here which I could never figure out, and I think this is the perfect place for it. So we're going to measure it out and build a slight little incline here for it to sit on, but still reasonably low laying here. For anyone saying, why isn't the tower on top of the hill? Well, let's get sensible. It's a line side one for the trains. And if we just make our way onto the other side, you'll see I've never actually done much here. And really, I sort of landscaped it and edged it just enough that there's really not much to do. But I think we're going to stick some line side trunking in, which will also just finish up the gaps in between, which aren't really that bad, even though they haven't been done. Through to the signal and link us up to where Noodle Knocker Junction is, and the other one that's feeding point work out here, but we'll have a single one that would justify its existence with the signal here, and then just making its way down, which really that's about all the room I've got for down here is to fit some trunk work down, and pop it up over here and coming up to our comms tower here. Now, I'm not going to film this little section at the moment, but I just need to apply a little bit of weathering to the tower. It's obviously the right color, and if I'd built it from scratch, I would have given it a lick with the galvanized spray, but it's not really going to be a good option. But I think what I'm actually going to do is just brush on a little bit of our watercolor. I'm actually just going to really focus on the white to bring out that kind of finish you expect to see on it. And then I'll go over it with a light wash, a dark wash. Oh, that doesn't make sense. A light gray wash. And that should bring out the definition in the joints there. So the white should sort of give it that nice sort of tarnish that you get on these types of masts. 2 drops of water to this grey that we have, to about 12 drops of water to the white. So it's mostly white here. I've taken a softer, deeper type of brush, and we're just going to start getting it on there. Really, the focus is actually on the actual main posts themselves. Again, I won't bore you with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to brush it on, give it a minute to dry off, and then take a bit of a paper towel or a stiff brush and just sort of flick it down on those areas and see where we end up. The colour won't stick, it'll just keep beading. So to avoid that from happening, you just add a drop of dishwashing liquid to your mix and it'll froth up and you'll get even coverage everywhere, which is what you want. Now we're just going to let it dry. And don't worry if you go too heavy. I've said this before, really don't panic about it, because when we're done, we're going to rub it back. And if you don't like it, you can wipe it all the way off. So if you've gone in the wrong areas and it's not right, don't panic. I've just taken a little bit of black, and while you might not see it, I'm just depositing it on the undersides here. A bit of shade that you might get a mold that can build up a little bit there. Just on our joints, just a little bit of black. Again, I'm going to wash them. It's tempting to get started, but we need to let that dry off and we'll manipulate that. Once it's manipulated, we're just going to take a little bit of the wash and just gently apply it. It will fill in all these details really nicely across the top. So just a little bit of paper towel or what have you, just add a smallest bit of water to it, and then usually we just fold it up, just let that moisture come through a little bit, and then in the direction you need, you can wipe this off. And as you can see, if we're going to push harder, and I can't really do this with one hand, but if you give it a real good hard push, you just wipe it all off. We're not too worried about the building per se, but what I was going to say is to do the mast, I'm just going to use a cotton bud, earbud, Q-tip, I don't know, whatever you people call them. Once again, a little bit of water on it, and for the most part, try and get the water off of it, so it's very, very almost just moist. Obviously I'm going to hold it with two hands. I didn't set up a tripod. And you can see it just softens everything up nicely. Takes that sheen off of this. And we make our way down. You can sort of see what we're up to here. In fact, just there, that sort of white that you can start to expect to build up around areas. Just notice that piece of a ladder is missing in there. I told you this has been a doozy. Ah yes, what do they call this? Putting lipstick on the pig. That's basically making the best out of a worse situation. Let's go back to some measurements here and get stuck into it. Well, like all good projects now, we've found the space we need. We're going to knock up a few rudimentary calculations as seen in the picture here. And basically what we're going to do here is just create a little bit of a rise here, pretty much to the edge of the board. So basically that thickness. And we want to just get the coastal thing sort of coming up. I'll use a little bit of the white weathering powder to sort of emulate what we've been doing down here. It'll come up to a slight rise, and we're going to put in here our little communications mast. And we're going to carry on some trunking to run back down the line to Noodle Knocker Junction. I think it's just the right space, and most importantly, I do want a piece of scenery that will just lift out of position, where we can knock the bridge out and lift them out and out accordingly. So it's important that this piece will look good, but also it needs to be 100% removable. I've been noodling about putting a floodlight or something in, and looking at real life, it's just not worth doing. Simplicity is key here. I jumped up and checked out what scrap bits of foam board we have, and actually found a piece that's pretty much bang on what we need if we just slot it in. Now obviously it's not quite to the angle, which will need to sit over here. Based on the measurements, even if it was overlaid into position, we're coming exactly where we need to be. And you'll recall the original one was under 30 centimeters. Well, we're at 29.5 here, and I think we're going to be just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to shape this one up and get it into position and see how we go. Pretty good. Because you've got the first archway of the bridge here, we'll slope it back off of there and come down and back up again. So I don't get too worried about cleaning this up. But again, just a little bit of sandpaper and you'll have the most perfect edge on that. So, okay. Now we'll just shape the rest of what we need to do. So we make our way over to this foam board cutter, and we're going to have to go freehand on this. In my case, it's always better to go a little bit over because you can trim that back. I haven't used it in a while, and as I've always said, just have a bit of practice. You should be fine. Looks good. Let's just change this camera angle up for a minute so you can see we've got the arch here and where we need to do. So we're going to round it off a little bit. I do want it to stay pretty much the height. I might just trim this edge back just a sec a bit, but I do want it to stay roughly coming up to a similar-ish type of height. I'll also use the top piece as the actual footprint that will sit it on. We're just going to create a natural undulation like we have further up the line there. This will sort of slope right back down, and we'll have what we need sitting somewhere around here. Just quickly, this next bit, we're going to have a bit of a dirt track that they're going to come up to service where they need to get to. And to get all these edges sort of where we need to go, we're going to use some sandpaper. Now, I'm not going to film it because it makes a heck of a mess, so I'm going to go do it outside. where the wheelie bin is. But you can see it's as soon as you start going, it can be as aggressive as you like, and you'll get beautiful smooth edges on it. So that's the trick for it. Just any sandpaper will do, whatever you prefer, but it will make a mess. So get this one away from your layout. Well, that's 5 minutes of sanding, and I'm very, very happy with what we've just created. The nice slope that's going to come off here. The trackside, which we may still just need to touch that up a little bit, but also we've created a little bit, as you can see, it's a bit of a sort of a carved out curve way that the utility truck would come up and maintenance this, which I've figured out what we're going to do to join the other bit up. But for the minute, that's not all too bad, and we should have a reasonable footprint here. We can tidy that up certainly as we go, but I think that's going to look quite good. Just enough room here that we're still going to get our fencing around it. Got a security fence. I think that should be okay. So the next thing, as always, is we're going to paint this down in some brown, and then we initially just throw some dirt over it to let it dry while it's got something on it, and we'll come back over and texture it up as we go, but you may as well save some steps. We're actually going to use 2 parts of dirt here. First will be that sort of beachy type of one you can see down here, which I acquired from Tugum. The other one will be some brown, so we get a bit of a separation going on here. It'll be very, very mild, and again, the detail will be in the road work and where this is and the shrubs that are here, but we've really got to try and get this looking just right. Well, here's an all far too familiar site. As usual, we're going to take our different grades of dirt here. We also, this time, took just a few different bits of paint here. Usually it's just that swampland green, but I tried to texture it with some lighter and darker ones in key areas. I don't know if that's going to play through, but we'll have a look. So we paint it over, we just dust some dirt straight on, and we're using both regular dirt here from the garden, and that lighter stuff is from a coastal section here in Queensland called Tugum. A lot of Wallam country out that way in the Fraser Coast area, which is really, really good for this, and I think it breaks it up nicely. A few spots of extra bits to break it up. You also saw me with the hot wire cutter. I'm trying to cut in some the sort of erosion grooves that you get there as the rainwater drains away. But we keep carrying on now, layer after layer. This was actually several days as we have to leave it to dry. And as we make our way back through now, we are now going to take some stones and a bit of a basic aggregate we're going to sit it on. I mean, the model itself sits on its own little concrete little slab, so we're just going to create a bit of stonework underneath and keep it reasonably flat to stand upon. And we'll carve the roadway, a bit of different textured dirt, and here we go. Well, as always, things really get serious. We're going to take a few different bits of static grass here. Of course, that burnt one is always good as a base layer, but I'm going to skip the step about laying a 2 mil and then building it up to a 4 mil and go straight to 4 mil. I really want to bring some clarity, and I don't want to clutter this sort of desolate, dry little corner out. So basically that salt's obviously going to cause issues with the ground, so it's not going to be as lush as we see on the other side or in other bits across from the rail there. The wind-swept coastal area, that's what it's all about. Now, again, we're going to be using that knock static grass glue. Look, between you and me, the PVA, I understand, is to be a bit more of a latex type of one. This is a better one. Between you and me, you could go either way, but well, I've still got a little bit left, and this is the entire pot I've bought since we've started construction of the layout, and considering we're coming to the final stretch on key bits of landscaping, this pot may well see me out. But you can see I'm just taking a cheap brush here and just spreading it into sort of dots and patches per se. We're not getting too carried away with this one. It's going to be a little more drier as we're linking the scene up. And we did quite well with the coastal scene, and I think this is important to try and get this right. But it's interesting looking at some of the colours and what I'm up to. That's a little bit of Woodland Scenics rock face there. It's just a scrap bit I had. I think we've got something. You'll also notice some crushed up leaves around the edges in the middle of where that track is for the utility vehicles. And here we are loading in our static grass. I like this Flocket applicator. I have the Peco one too, but the Flocket one really does have excellent static charge. It was highly reviewed and bang for the bucks. I'm pretty happy with it, other than it'd be nice if it had some different attachments for dumping it out on. But we keep recycling it into the hopper, and we just keep layering and layering. I use a vacuum cleaner to get it standing, and also getting rid of the loose stuff so I could just keep reapplying. We'll see in some closer shots in a minute. I think it works really, really well. As we carry on now, we'll keep recycling. And now we're going to come in another quick suck and a tickle with the vacuum cleaner. And of course now I think we've really got something a little special that we need to let dry for the minute. I will just briefly, while we're leaving that to dry, this is going to be our little section of a track we're going to join up, and I just put a little bit of a grooved out bit that's going to sit under that viaduct, that's going to sit underneath that bridge, and you can see where I've sort of carved out where the wheels are going to be. I've put some stones down to create an uneven sort of dried out bit from where moisture may build up, and of course I carved a little center section out, so that we're going to leave that to dry now. While we have the glue drying there, we'll also keep that glue and paint going around the corner here. This was the bit we needed to clean up near the cricket pitch where our maroon coach was banging into, so I thought I'd clean that up now. Okay, let's just lift the lid on what we're up to here. And as you can see, as I carved it out here, I went a little too deep and I needed to put a ridge back in to create the middle of what would be a carved out road there. Then what we're going to do, with the leftover foam glue around it, we put a few stones in. That gives us a little bit of texture around the area. Now we'll paint it and get some dirt on there and see how we can go now. And back to the tried and tested formula. We'll just take some watered down brown paint. Swampland green seems to be the one that's working for me the best, and just dumping the dirt straight over the container. Also, this is the other little section I'm working on the other side, and you can see I carved a couple of little road tracks out there. I didn't give them as much detail as we've done in other areas. It's almost barely even plausible, but I thought we'd come up with something. A cheap bit of this fence I found on one of those sites for $1 or something. It's not perfect. In fact, it was terrible. It was bent when it arrived. But making do with what we've got and adding a few little tufts here and there to try and get this looking a little normal. All right, let's take a quick tour, shall we? Here's the little bit that'll run underneath the bridge for the roadway. It's dumped in dirt at the moment, but we've got the tyre marks on that. And here are the tyre marks on the section that would come up and meet where the little communications box will be. We're just waiting on a little bit of fence work to dry at the moment, and then we'll come along and start adding some shrubs and things like that. Let's make our way over now to the actual layout side of it, and of course we've got the linking bit that needs to go here where the tree will be, and you saw that in an earlier picture over here. That's just had the dirt dumped on it and drying, and you can see the tyre marks that will come in and detail up a little bit. Tree will sit in that hole. There's really not much room here to do anything else, so I'll probably just do a light bit of static grass or something, and that will obviously then sit into this piece here. But we've just temporarily removed the other bit that leads us to the radio control club, because there was it always just sat there, and while the board was painted and there's a little bit of static grass across the edging, we hadn't done much, so I've just plonked some PVA down and just dumped dirt on it. Now we're going to suck that up, a little bit of more burnt static grass, maybe 4 mil around the edge. There's a little cutout section here that's screaming for a bit of detail, but I think I'm going to keep it neutral. And then we can put the module back in and that finishes it up. And then of course the next thing we're going to have to prepare for our trunking to get down this way. Now this is the one I'm going to use on this particular occasion, which is of course from Goodwood Scenery. It's a pre-made one, pre-weathered one. It comes in a kit with all the attachments. It's probably the more premium way to go. As you'll recall, I did build my own down here, and that was using the scale model scenery kit. And we're still going to be carrying on with that in the main section. I really do like the detail it delivers, and I could add those cables in there, which is just a bit of bent craft wire, and I think it's the way to go. But for the other section here, we're going to use this because it's clean and simple and I can cover a large area. and we're not going to have a lot of open parts on it. It's pretty much just sealed to deal with from the signal box down to this signal, and then the trunking will go down to the communications mast located here where this tree is sitting at the moment. So that's the update.
Well, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to wrap things up here in part 1. And of course, as you can see, there's nothing here to see yet now, is there? That's because we've got everything all drying and gluing and just waiting to carry on. So as always, please do stay safe, and I'll look forward to seeing you in part 2 of this little chapter. Toodles!